Hey, this 2026, I want us to move forward in faith. Text Exodus 14:15 to 22. Exodus chapter 14 places us to a critical turning point in Israelites' redemptive journey. The people of Israel were no longer slaves in Egypt, yet they were not fully free in their minds. Though God had delivered them through mighty signs and wonders, fear still controlled their hearts. God intentionally led them toward the Red Sea, a route that appeared confusing and dangerous. This was not an accident, it was a divine strategy. Behind them came Pharaoh with chariots, soldiers, and power. Before them lay a vast sea. On both sides stood mountains. Israel was trapped here. At this moment, their faith collapsed into fear. They cried out, complained, and wished they had never left Egypt. This reveals a deep truth. Physical deliverance does not automatically produce spiritual maturity. Moses prayed, but God's response was surprising. God did not comfort their fear, He confronted it. Verse 15 marks a turning point here. Why do you cry to me? God asks Moses. Why do you people cry to me? Tell the Israelites to move forward. God was teaching His people that faith must grow beyond prayer into obedience. 2026. Move forward in faith. This moment was not just about escape. It was about transformation. God was shifting Israel from a slave mentality to a faith-driven identity. The Red Sea was not merely an obstacle. It was a classroom where God taught His people how to trust Him when the future was unclear. For both us people, Exodus 14 mirrors our own spiritual journey. We are saved yet often afraid. We believe yet hesitate to obey. God still brings His people to moments where human strength fails, so that the divine power may be revealed, power of God. The question is not whether God can deliver, but whether His people will move forward in faith. 2026. Number 1, God shifts His people from crying to obedience. Verse 15. God's question to Moses is striking. Why do you cry to me? This is not a rejection of prayer, but a rebuke of prayer that replaces obedience. There are moments when prayer becomes an excuse to delay faith. God was teaching Israel that crying out without moving forward will keep them trapped. Israel's fear was understandable, but fear cannot become the final voice. God was calling them to act on what they already knew about Him. They had seen His power in Egypt. Now He wanted them to trust Him in uncertainty. Many young people pray for change, or many people pray for change but refuse to take the responsibility. Living sinful relationships, choosing discipline, committing fully to Christ. God says, move forward. Faith grows when obedience begins. You want to live, to come out from that bondage, move forward. Hallelujah. These challenges are spiritual, or they challenge spiritual complacency. Long prayers without action lead to stagnation. God calls His church to obedience in mission, generosity, holiness, and leadership. You are there, you are a guy, you are looking for a wife, you are looking for someone to get married. Move forward, come out of the bondage. Faith is not passive. Obedience is the evidence of trust. God's command teaches us that spiritual maturity is marked not by emotional prayer, but by obedience movement. Number 2, God works through delegated authority and responsibility. Verse 16, God commands Moses, lift up your staff. The staff represented authority given by God. Though God could have parted the sea without Moses, he chose to work through him. You know what? This teaches that God partners with human obedience. Divine power flows through surrendering or surrendered responsibility. Moses had to act before the miracle occurred. For us here, this means God expects responsibility over choices, behavior, and faith. You cannot wait for others to live your faith for you. God has blessed authority in your hands. Use it faithfully. You know what? God works through faithful leaders, parents, pastors, elders who obey his instructions. When leaders act in faith, the people move forward. God honors obedience connected to responsibility. Miracles often begin when God's people step into their God's given roles. Number 3, God makes a way for his glory, not human praise. That's 17 to 18. God declared that Pharaoh David will bring him glory. Deliverance was not just for Israel's benefit, it was for God's reputation. This teaches that God's ultimate goal is his glory. Salvation, miracles, and victories point back to him. For us, this frames success. God delivers you not to boast, but to testify. Your changed life is a witness. Hallelujah. God delivers. This frames success. God delivers you not to boast, but to testify. Your changed life is a witness. Number 4, God protects his people before opening the way. Verse 19 to 20. Before the sea opened, God blessed the pillar of fire between Israel and Egypt. Protection came before progress. This reveals God's pastoral care. He shields his people while preparing their deliverance. For us, God's protection often goes unnoticed, guarding you from dangers you never see. For the church, this assures us that God is defending his people spiritually, even in unseen ways. God never exposes his people without protection. Hallelujah. God opens the way by his sovereign power. Number 5, God used a strong east wind. Nature obeyed its creator. The impossible became possible through divine power. Hallelujah. For us here, this shows no situation is beyond God's reach. For the church, it reminds us to trust God, not human system. God alone makes a way, human system fails. God calls his people to walk through by faith. The last point, Israel had to walk. The miracle required participation. Faith must be lived daily. Salvation is a journey of trust. Deliverance is completed when God's people move forward. Move forward in faith this 2026. Are you there? You are stagnant in a bondage. Move forward. Make a step. Take an action and move forward. The Israelites went through the sea on dry ground. The miracle was not complete until they walked. Faith required movement. Hallelujah. You must walk in obedience 2026 daily, intentionally, boldly. Hallelujah. Salvation is not standing at the edge. It is walking forward in trust until God completes the work. Hallelujah. Exodus 14 teaches us one central truth. Deliverance is experienced when God's people move forward in faith. Hallelujah. still speaks